We're here at the Silverstone Museum in amongst our cars for a new exhibit, but I'm joined by Anthony Davidson. How are you, Anthony?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, great to be here in the museum.
It's fantastic you're here, and we're really pleased that we're able to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk a bit about karting. Now, you've brought a couple of things along with you, which we're going to talk about, and the first thing we're going to focus on is this piece of paper, laminated piece of paper. Tell me a little bit about this.
Well, first of all, you can thank my dad for all of this, who ran our junior kart team back in the day. And we raced here in Silverstone in 1990, and this is the result sheet from that event. Some pretty good names on here. Had some pretty strong competition back in the day. You can see the winner of the race, a certain Dan Weldon.
Absolutely, someone we will know. Yeah,
yeah.
We'll talk about.
I was second place. You got Tom Sisley in third place and Jenson Button in third place.
Jenson, the Formula One world champion there, and you beat him.
I beat him on the day, but not Dan Weldon.
Yeah,
Wasn't good enough for that.
Have you shown Jenson this piece of paper?
I haven't shown him. I don't know if he remembers that race actually. It was a nice rarity to see Jenson up here because he's a Froome lad.
Long distance to travel for karting.
Exactly, yeah. But he made the effort to come all the way up here to Silverstone to take on some of the best in the country. And yeah, Dan had the number one on the plate. Yes, he. I'm number 6 there, which was the 6th seed in the country.
Right.
And what was Jenson? He had the number 2. So yeah, he would have finished second, a runner-up to Dan Weldon in that year's British Championships. So yeah, he would have to venture quite far afield to come and find the competition. But we loved racing each other. It was really special memories for us.
And kart racing, if our viewers haven't been, is so close, isn't it? You really are using slipstreaming, you're right in and out. And how important is that in developing racecraft? Because you obviously went on to Formula One, World Endurance Racing, but it all started in karting. How important are those skills that you learn at that level?
Absolutely. For me, it was essential to be, like learning anything, whether you're a skier or a tennis player. If you can learn, the younger you can learn it, the better. There's something that wires up in your brain differently, I think, when you start something so young. So for me, starting karting at 8 years old, I really feel like it just developed those foundations, what you carry with you through the rest of your career. And I really don't think you can beat that when it comes to a go-kart, that close proximity racing, the slipstreaming, like you say, wheel-to-wheel action. And it really was wheel-to-wheel action back in those days before side pods.
We'll have a quick look at the kart in a minute, but there is something else I want to bring up, because you talked about racing when you were very young, and you've brought an absolute gem of an item with you, and I can't wait to get it on display. It's your racing leathers. I mean, firstly, how cute are these? They are absolutely brilliant. I mean, tell us a little bit about the idea of, A, their leather, and then B, the stars.
So, my brother, who started racing before I did, he's 2.5 years older than me, he unfortunately had suffered a nasty incident in one of his early races where he flipped and he got sent across the track and scuffed himself up pretty badly. So my father thought, I can't have this. I can't have my kids getting scuffed up doing kart.
Yeah.
So he thought, well, motorbike riders get thrown off all the time and they wear leathers. So he got in touch with a company that produced these fantastic overalls. And I raced in these from probably 9 years old until I was 11. You can see how small I was as an 11-year-old.
They are brilliant. As I said to you earlier, I'd be interested to see what Crofty says about you in terms of your size with these. But we'll let him have a watch of this and have a look at these. But they've almost immediately become one of my favourite exhibits that we're going to have here, because
thanks very
they're
much.
So unique, and we don't have anything from junior motorsport like this. I'm just going to turn them round if we can, because they've also got your name on the back, which is something a lot of the karters are doing today. They have it all on there, and they're just absolutely brilliant. I notice a lot of wear down the bottom.
Well, that's actually on the knee section. Yeah. That's from the fuel tank.
Right.
So the petrol leaking out of the fuel tank could have been taken away the stain from the colour. But to talk about the stars quickly. So I think the company that did these overalls, you could either have stripes or other patterns and shapes. And my dad asked me, I remember he said, what would you like? Because my brother had stripes. He had black leather overalls with yellow stripes. So I thought, I had already stars on the helmet. which still had all the way through to the end of my
yeah.
career. And so this is kind of where, I was just like star obsessed as a 9-10-year-old.
As I said to you when we got them out of the box, Evel Knievel. It said to me straight away, that leather with the stripes there. It's almost a US type of thing. Now, you've mentioned the petrol leaking. We have got here, and we're going to move around it. We're going to do a bit of a walk around. The cart you've got with us. So this is the cart that raced here at Silverstone. We've even got the date there, the 4th of August 1990 for that race meeting, and we've got the sticker there. But tell us a little bit about this kart, because it's lovely. It brings back a lot of memories for me, but tell us about it from your point of view.
Obviously, even more memories for me. This kart has been restored thanks to my father, who had this in his garage as a bare chassis. Things like the nose cone, steering wheel, and the wheels were all scattered all over the place, the engine as well. So we put it together meticulously over the years. And one Christmas just came to the house and said, "Here's your Christmas present this year, mate." But which I absolutely like. It's the best present I've ever had, because it just, all those memories come flooding back, and you see the little seat in there and the insert. It really goes to show how small I was. And Steve Tillett from Tillett Seats was making the seats back then, and he made this insert specially for these seats. We had a guy called Bruno Ferrari, hence the Ferrari sticker on there, doing the engines. He was also doing Dan Weldon's engines and many others as well, top engine tuner. And this was kids karting. We already had engine tuners.
And you're already a Ferrari driver at that point.
Been there and done that.
And also notice the little foot holders there to actually kind of get your feet high enough to get to the brake and accelerator pedals there as well.
That's right. So you can see everything's cable operated. The brakes as well had this double cable for the single brake disc at the back. All that still works. It was just a really simple machine, no body work. It's a chrome moly chassis, TIG welded, Italian chassis, Alcart as they call it over there. We called it Allcart. And we had a little rev counter. There wasn't any data acquisition, nothing like that. It was just no telemetry, just a rev counter that you had to remember the highest figure you saw when you were driving, and which I often made up and told my dad. And then it's got all the little dent marks on here from, obviously it was pretty physical stuff with the other karts around you, still is today. But I raced up and down the country in this. I finished 6th, like I say, in the British Championships. I think that was in 1990. My dad might correct me. Then moved on after this to Junior TKM, then into Junior Britain, and then moved into Europe to race Formula A, Super A, and before getting through into Formula Ford. So this was really, really early days in my career.
And I say it gives you the idea of simplicity. It goes back to that thing you were talking about with regards to learning the absolute basics of racecraft, learning to deal with slick tyres, learning all of those kind of things, and you can really, really see it there. Now we'll grab back on a seat for a second, because how proud are you to have it? It's going to be sat here next to Jenson Button's World Championship winning car. You've got Valentino Rossi's bike just behind me, and it's going to be sat just here. How proud are you to have it here at the museum amongst these other machines?
Really proud and really emotional actually as well, because it's very odd to think that I was there testing that car behind us as well, and watching my mate and teammate Jenson Button and sparring partner from back in these days take the World Championship in that car, and to be a part of the team as well. It's then to see this kart here next to that machine behind me. It's basically almost my entire career in 2 sittings, and it's hard to get my head around that. But obviously very proud to see it here. I'm happy. I'm really thankful for Silverstone Museum for taking it on and for looking after it for me, because it was just in my garage getting a bit rusty, and I felt bad that my father had put in all this work, not just running it back in the day, but prepping it and restoring it for me, and obviously still busy working myself today, that I couldn't give it the attention that it needed and give it the environment that it needed. So yeah, it's lovely to finally see it here at the home of British motorsport, and to have raced it here as well at the Silverstone Kart Grand Prix it just really brilliantly brings it all together.
Yeah, as we always try to do, make a link with our museum, with what goes on track, and it crosses over into that link. Now, while you're here, I'm going to ask you a couple of other questions, if you don't mind. You've had a quick look, and I've seen you gazing longingly at Nigel Mansell's two cars over there. We've got our Indy 500 exhibition, and we've got Nigel Mansell's Lola next to his FW14B, the 92-93 championship years. Tell me a bit about because you've been looking at those cars. What do you feel about those two cars over there?
Well, it probably wasn't too far away from the time I was racing in this, watching that car, the 14B, racing, and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. I was weaned on Murray Walker.
Weren't we all? Absolutely.
And just I'd sit there watching the TV, watching that car racing, my hero Nigel Mansell at the wheel, and to see it here in the museum. I mean, it's so iconic. It's such a piece of history, and a car that I'm obviously very fond of, and wouldn't ever have dreamt to get up close to it back when I was a kid watching it on TV. So to actually, see it here in the flesh, having watched that as a child, it is quite emotional. And again, just I can now look at it with experienced eyes of what engineers and designers are trying to do with the cars, and realize what a pretty little thing it is.
It is a good looking car.
It's so sleek, and without all the flick ups that you have on modern machinery, such an honest car. And I love the fact it's got active ride as well, something I long for them to bring back in Formula One today. I love the technology of it all. And you can just clearly see that it's a newie design as well.
Yeah, and sitting next to the Lola that he went on to drive in the Indy 500, the difference between the two cars is pretty stark, and that looks quite a beast to drive as well, doesn't it, that Lola?
I remember watching Nigel in the F1 car, willing him on in that, and then he made the transition to go over the pond to go and race in the USA in IndyCar or Champ Car as it was back then, and I remember he just took to it straight away, was blisteringly fast, and won the championship in that car. And it's again a remarkable bit of history. It's great timing on my behalf. I'm here when you're kindly looking after some of the Indy Museum artifacts as well.
Yeah, and it's great to have this here amongst all these other cars. Now, I can't go away without firstly asking a little bit about this year's Formula One season. Now, we all see you on Sky with that Sky pad, giving us an amazing insight into what's going on in the races. Do you have to listen to every single radio broadcast from every single driver? Because your insight's brilliant, but do you have to listen to all that? How does that work?
So when I'm doing, there's two different things. So the Sky Pad is the analysis post-event or even pre-event sometimes from old footage. And that's up to me to choose which clips go in there. They get sent from the UK, from Osterley, where Sky are based, sent across the networks to arrive onto the screen, and then I can play and pause it and manipulate it in a certain way with the graphics that we have available, the tools we have. So that's the analysis I love to do. And just to, it's a fast-paced sport, just in a way to slow it all down, to stop it if necessary, so that people can understand it and take it all in, because it all happens in a blink of an eye, especially in modern day F1. They're such quick machines. Yeah. And then the other thing you touched on is the race control. When Crofty was saying, we go to Anne or Karoon on Sky Race Control. That's me sitting there with the headphones on, listening, like you say, I can choose anyone's radio at any time, but I can only listen to 4 at one go as it currently stands. So you have to choose wisely who's in the battle and who's likely to be coming out with radio messages that aren't pulled up straight away by Formula One themselves, because they're also doing a similar thing. They're listening and sending it out there on the world feed, whereas I'm trying to come at it from a position where maybe talking about the unseen, other battles further down the field, for example, that Crofty might not be aware of himself, that FOM haven't spotted either, and just to bring more stories to the race, and just to keep the fans more entertained and try and, if they're on the driver tracker or whatever, they'll be maybe diverting their attention when they're hearing someone else's radio. So I can also play footage through there as well. So if, say, first lap incident or any incident on track, I can be there doing analysis real time, feeding that information to Martin or Crofty, just to help steer them in the right direction when it comes to, we've seen a crash or an incident, and it's all over before you know it, and the camera moves on to something else, or I can go back and look at that and say, that was in fact one of the drivers you thought it was, or maybe somebody different, and so caused it. They've got front wing damage or such and such. So,
and your insight as an ex-driver will be able to give something that other channels just don't get, and so it really privileged to have that insight. So, last race out, Lando Norris. A result that's been so popular. We here at the museum have seen loads of Lando t-shirts coming in since that result. What impact's that going to have for the rest of this season in Formula One and here at the British Grand Prix in a couple of months' time? What impact do you think it's going to have?
I mean, we're really blessed, aren't we, as a nation, to have three amazing drivers in Lewis, George and Lando, and with many more to follow, I'm sure, in the future. But yeah, we in a way we've been spoilt with the amount of success that Lewis has had, that we've become accustomed to. A British driver gets in the car, dominates, wins another championship, walks away. So I'm really pleased to see another Brit have their turn in the spotlight and to win a race that everyone's been longing for, because he's been so close as Lando many times, to the point where people were starting to doubt whether it would ever happen. Whether he found it difficult in the heat of the moment to send it across the line, to do that last extra bit to get the win. I never doubted that he could win a race. I don't doubt he'll win a championship as well, or many more in the future. He just needed the equipment and he needed to gain more experience as well. And I feel like he should have already won a few Grand Prix, but to finally see him achieve that in such dominant fashion and such a stylish race from him as well. He's loved up and down the country. He's got a young fan base. He's all over social media. He's on the racing sims as well. So he really connects with the younger generation. And like I said, and also a young female audience, which is really important for our sport. He's flying the flag there very well. And it's great to see him now as a fully fledged race winner. Wish him all the best for future races, and I'm sure he'll win some more, because that McLaren's looking pretty racy. It is.
I mean, it's great to hear you talk about that diversity point and bringing, and we certainly see it in terms of the audience that are coming in. It's a younger audience that are wearing, rather than the Lewis t-shirts, it's the Lando things that are coming through. McLaren have obviously made some changes, and it looks better. The rest of the season, will it be Red Bull still edging it, or do you think McLaren are clearly coming on a bit stronger? Mercedes have got some developments. I was reading this morning about Ferrari's new developments. Is it going to be closer as we move towards the end of the season?
I think it will, I feel like in this third year now of a stable set of regulations, you always start seeing teams chip away, learn from their mistakes, and start to gain the performance that they're looking for. While you have teams at the top like Red Bull that are really just fine-tuning now what they had, and the rules are pretty tight, quite restrictive in many ways. So I do expect teams like Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren to keep getting closer and closer to Red Bull. It might not happen consistently through to the end of this year, but I'm hopeful that next year we'll see them even closer before the next set of regulations come.
And that's inevitably significant, isn't it? 2026.
So it goes to show that if you keep the regulations stable, then eventually, as 2021 proved with Mercedes dominance, eventually you can be beaten, and you'll get more exciting races. But the sport moves on. The motor industry in general moves on. So the sport has to some degree follow what the manufacturers, the OEMs, want from their road cars and from that industry. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, isn't it? You can't keep, as much as I'd love to see V10s run forever, you will lose manufacturers if you don't. So it's really that double-edged sword that you're dealing with there, because yes, we want manufacturers involved, we want the money to be pumped in for that technological drive that we all want and love from Formula One, because it is exciting and interesting.
Yeah.
It's not just racing cars and drivers, that it's a technological warfare on four wheels, and that's what I love about it, and that's what we get because of manufacturers being involved.
Yeah, I love that enthusiasm around that STEM and the science and tech bit. We do a huge education program here, lots of young people, and it's lovely to get under the skin of some of these cars to talk about those kind of things. Anthony, I could sit and talk to you for hours about this. It's been such a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for the kart. It's going to be something that's going to be great for our visitors to come and see and spend some time looking at amongst all these other vehicles. Anthony, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much for looking after this for me.